kept trying to go the traditional route. Like I went to college. I even went to nursing school and I got my nursing license. But all the while, like hair just kept calling me. Yeah. And then I realized that once I got my nursing license and I started working as a nurse, I was working at a lockdown facility for youth. Mm-hmm. And I would still come home and braid my clients' hair. My clients were like, when are you going to open your salon? And I'm just like, I don't know. And, you know, I didn't really have an answer for them because I still had this fear of taking that step into entrepreneurship. Because, you know, entrepreneurship is risk taking. You know, there's security in jobs. There's security in, or there's the idea or the illusion of security in you know, the traditional route. But entrepreneurship is just like, I got to bet on me. And so the reason why I made the step was because I just did not feel aligned. You know, I found myself just doing something for money versus what I love. So I would come home from my nursing job and I'd be doing hair and I'm just like, this feels like right. This feels like where I'm supposed to be. And that's when I decided to just quit my nurse. I only worked for like 4 months as a nurse, quit my job. And I always felt like, well, I can always go back to that. You know, if anything doesn't, you know, happen the way I wanted to, I can always fall back on that. But this feels right. Right. And so from that point on, and that was 10 years after I had been doing hair, you know, but that's when I, like you said, it's almost 10 years before you actually, but I think when it comes to, you know, certain paths that you're supposed to be on, you don't really choose it. It chooses you. Yeah. You know? And so when I decided to like choose it back, so to speak, that's when things like really started to just make sense for me because I felt that I was on the right path, like in purpose. Yeah.
One thing you said that immediately stood out, and I'll never forget this conversation, when I was about to graduate and we're sitting and you're just like, well, you know, you never made me feel like I had to choose between school and being at the salon. But one thing you said to me that never left me to this day was, what gives you peace? Do you have peace to go to grad school, or do you have peace to do what you heard God say? Not what God said from your mouth, but you knew what I heard him say. And it was in that moment that I'm like, I know the answer. And even though I have peace with the decision, it didn't mean that I was going to miss the stage to kind of grieve something that I thought I was supposed to be. But the moment that I did have that peace and started to be able to walk in it, like take one step further, like the love, the joy, the excitement of like doing what we were doing every day. And you had just started the academy. So it was like, I'm now getting to record videos and stuff. It was insane, but it was just like, this is who I am. I had so much peace there. I felt like God was going to bless that because there was a level of joy that I didn't have. Now, I loved school, don't get me wrong. Right. But it was a level of joy that I didn't necessarily have in doing research that I had in braiding and twisting and seeing our clients' hair transform and then being able to sew into them and see their mind transform, their lives transform. It was everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it speaks to being fulfilled. It's like you can enjoy a lot of things, but there's another thing when you feel like I'm in the right place and I'm fulfilled. And I definitely felt like, you know, that's what I experienced. But, you know, even going back to that moment, I remember that moment, you were so torn. You were just like, oh my gosh, because I feel like there was these pressures of living up to somebody else's standard for what they saw for you. And, you know, there is kind of like this hierarchy that people have as this is more valuable. This is more worthy of a life path, not realizing that God's path supreme and trumps all of those paths. But when you don't really see the full picture, you know, just looking at it, it's just like, no, you need to do this. Like, you know, again, I went to nursing school, you know, and nursing was paying good money, you know, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know where this path leads, but I know that it's God and I would rather trust that. And I always say, like, you know, God can dream a bigger dream for you than you can for yourself. And so while you think you got everything mapped out and you going off of like how much money you can make or even appeasing the likes of somebody else, not even realizing that you're people pleasing to an extent, you know, that, I mean, you can find yourself just being on the wrong path and you'll realize it because you won't have peace. Yeah.
So what would you say to a stylist who really they're in between, they trying to work their 9 to 5 and do hair and, you know, have a family and, you know, like they're trying to essentially stretch themselves thin and do too much. They're not choosing. What would you say to somebody who is like, I kind of want to choose, but I'm scared? What would you say to them?
The first thing I would say is get still. I think when we're in movement sometimes and, you know, we're just almost to a degree, like you can get distracted and you can just be going based off of the things that need to get done and you're not in a place where you can hear. And I think stillness calms you to where you start recognizing, am I, you know, moving based off of what the expectations of others are? Am I trying to live up to somebody else's standard? What feels right within me, you know? And I think those moments of stillness can help you to figure that out. And I think, you know, it goes back to, again, we're talking about being rare, getting a revelation. Well, how do you get a revelation? First, you have to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you have to be in a place for that revelation to come to you. And I think that that's like the surrendering of God. Like, what do you want from my life? Like, what are you saying? And it may be very counterintuitive. It may not even make no sense at all because, you know, when we're walking this path and we're living this life that we say that we live, if you're a believer, it's predicated on trust.
Yeah.
So there are going to be times where he's going to cause you to do something that doesn't make sense. What if he does say, you know, I am transitioning you into this lane? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be in hairstyling. It could be, you know, I have this path for you, but are you willing to let go of this thing that you think is right or you think is secure or you think is safe in order to go down the path that I have for you?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really what the first thing is, just to get still and to pray and ask God to give you a revelation of who you are uniquely and what's the next step. I mean, how many scriptures do we have that says, you know, I will go before you and make your crooked paths straight. You know, the steps of a righteous man are ordered of the Lord. Like, I will direct your path. You know what I'm saying? What is that? Trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not
to your own
understanding. In all thy ways, acknowledge him and he will direct. Like, do we believe that?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it in the natural, if you're like, Essence, follow me, I'm going to, you know, show you, then it's literally like, okay, I'm waiting on the next thing you're telling me to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so in the same way, if we're following God, it's just like, if he says he's going to lead, then your position is to follow.
Yeah.
You know? And so I just think that we have to really kind of close our eyes and our ears to what we see, because I think what we see can limit us, because what we see could be lack. What we see could be all the things that we don't have, you know, versus God is like, don't even worry about what you don't have.
Good. Oh, that's so good.
Because I can supernaturally provide one person that will be able to give you what you need for that next step. Yeah. You know what I mean? But we don't know that. So we're only going off of what we can calculate. This is how much is in my bank account. This is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
instead of starting where we are.
Right.
Yeah.
So we look at limitations versus the abundance, you know? And he said, don't get me excited.
Get excited.
But he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask, think, or imagine. And so I think that when we begin to not only pray, but see, it goes back to getting a revelation of his character. If you don't know his character, then how can you really trust?
Yeah.
It's like in any relationship, I can only depend on you to the level that I know that I can trust you to. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so he's just saying, get to know me. Yeah. Get to know me. And so I think that getting to know me is him telling you, like, everything is a promise. Like, I'm telling you, I got you. Yeah. The whole, from Genesis and Revelations, I got you, you know? And so when we understand that he is dependable, he is trustworthy, then when he does give us a direction, we can't think that he's about to make us fall on our face. Yeah. Because that's not his heart. That's not his character, you know? Yeah. So for me, in all the steps that, you know, I had to take even in my career, I mean, there were so many transitions from going from being a nurse into full-time braiding, from going from full-time braiding to open a salon, from going from open a salon to educating.
Yeah.
All of those steps were very scary for me,
Yeah.
but I took them because I heard him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it wasn't like based on what I thought I could do. Yeah, I mean, I knew I was gifted as a stylist, but I didn't know I could teach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that that's where we really have to really just trust him. So I don't know, what would you say in terms of like, what would those steps be for a stylist who is kind of like weighing out options or